There's going to be a discussion panel now, which is going to be chaired by Gunter, and we have some distinguished people on this. We have Edward Ayensu, I probably said that completely wrong, who's going to come up right now. He's chairman of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research in Ghana. There's Chido Govero, who's founder of Orphans Train Orphans from Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Neil Hawkins, who's the Senior Vice President of Sustainability, and EH&S, I'm going to have to work that one out, of the Dow Chemical Company. There's Stefan Henningsson, who's Director of Climate Change in WWF Sweden. Eric Leger, who's Country President, South Korea, Schneider Electric. And Changhua Wu, I know I've said that wrong, and she'll say it right when she comes up. She's Director, Greater China, the Climate Group. Over to you, ladies and gentlemen.
One chair short. I'm jumping in for Sylvie Lemaitre, who couldn't join. She's still in Paris. And so I was asked to chair, and I learned that very recently. So what we have done is the following. We have asked, since now the computer systems are set up, I would like the computer systems to prepare the presentation for Chido, the next one. And we will ask Chido to make a brief presentation on what she has done in Zimbabwe and elsewhere. And I think when you have the visual of that, it will help you frame the other questions that we're asking for this panel. Okay?
Greetings to everyone. It's such an honor to be here today, and especially for me because I'm representing the people that tells me a story of where I used to be. I grew up as an orphan, coming from that little village you can see from the picture. Can you go to the next one? So this is where I grew up, and I mean, you can't see much because there's not much to see. And through growing up in this place as an orphan, having to struggle to get food and even to get protection from the people who were family to me, it was difficult. It was not easy. And in that time is when I decided that maybe it is not time to wait for those people that we call family or those people that we think are better than us to do something. I learned to realize that it is time that maybe we should stand for each other as orphans, standing up to help the other, because we are the ones who best understand our situations. And then at the age of 13, I learned to know how to farm mushrooms. It was at the age of 12, and then when I was looking at how I learned to farm mushrooms, when I had barely gone to school, I realized that this would be a point to start. So I continued learning to farm mushrooms, and 8 years later, I started teaching other orphans to grow mushrooms. And they're now providing their own food. Now they we sit there, we learn about mushrooms and growing vegetables and things, and we talk about our stories. And that helps them to relate to me and to be able to envision that change is possible. I especially remember when I was younger and I was sitting there with no food and no one to look up to, I never used to think that things would change. But when I first started to know how to produce my own food, I learned to know that maybe it is possible. And it was easier for me to understand that change is possible when I had food to eat. But before that, it was very difficult. You can imagine how it is when you're starving and you know that you don't have anything to eat today and you're likely not to get anything to eat tomorrow. It's painful and you can hardly do anything. But now we have started teaching these girls, and the same experience that I had is exactly what they're having now. When you listen to them talking, you can see that something is starting to shift. And to grow mushrooms, we're using waste material that is locally available. We're using anything from agricultural waste, maize of grasses, as you can see. When we're cleaning the yard, we don't throw the waste away. We keep it and we grow mushrooms from that. You can go to the next one. And this is done in a very simple way. And the harvest, from the day you start growing mushrooms to the day that you get the first mushrooms, it's just 3 weeks. And these children sometimes have to go without food so many times. And now we have been able to identify something that can bring food within 3 weeks. And it's not a heavy thing to do. Young as they may be, it's something that's fun for them to do and they like doing it. We've also have experiences with working with women in India. And these women who have barely gone to school, some of them don't even know how to write their own names. But we went there and we taught them to grow mushrooms, and they understood. And what they ended up saying is that growing mushrooms is much easier than tending to a veggie garden. That was a little bit surprising. I used to work so hard in the gardens and I thought that was the easiest I could do, but then they said mushroom growing is the easiest. That's a nice picture of me with a good friend. You can go to the next one. So we have also realized that in Zimbabwe, there is one production that produces a lot of waste. And there's about 500 people working on that farm, every season. And there's lots of waste being produced, and we're struggling in Zimbabwe. It's very difficult to get food, and especially for farm workers like this. So we have learned to convert that waste into food. And we have started training women there, and now they're starting to grow their own mushrooms. And what we're working on now is to try and see how we can relaunch the export of coffee from Zimbabwe so that we can be able to start training women, and then by making the cash crop, start to generate food for these women who are working in the farms. And then this waste can now be converted into more jobs for the people around the coffee farming communities. And then it will provide food security and jobs. And especially for women, it's very special for me because I went through lots of abuse and stuff. And so my main thing is to be able to eliminate abuse. And so with the relaunching of the export of coffee from Zimbabwe, we can be able to eliminate abuse from children and even some young single mothers, because it still happens even when you're older. You don't have to just be a child.